6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, as heard on the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. I am Chris at Lightforce, back in the saddle virtually with Matt Lee at Lightly_61 and Anna Forsyth at A4Forsyth03. And if you could see what I could see right now, you'd wonder why we're even recording a podcast.
Yeah, this is C4 After Dark.
It is. It's like after Game 4. Spoiler alert, it's now a best of 3 series. I was thinking, should we have not just recorded beforehand when we were optimistic?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually had a really good day.
I feel like the ratings would have gone through the roof if we had recorded before and felt optimistic. We should have operated as though we were recording a podcast, as though we were taking a 3-1 series lead, and it's one of those things that'll live up there in the blogosphere, right there with our 2011 Stanley Cup championship that we have, and that Ryan Kessler is still a Canuck, and that Luongo is still a Canuck. All those things are right up there.
And Frankie Corrado is still a Canuck.
Only you would care for that.
Where is Frankie these days? Is he in the KHL? Or?
I think he just signed a contract in the Sweden. Yeah.
No, he's going to the Elite League. Yeah, Modo. He's going to. Yeah, he asked the Sedins for advice, and they said it was good, so he went. He also just got married, so.
We don't care. Let's talk about you. Let's not.
It wasn't to me, sadly.
No, we're going to stop talking about Frankie Corrado and focus on what's the task at hand here.
What, we really want to talk about this? Well, okay. In fairness, we're going to be talking more than the most recent Vancouver Canucks game. I mean, there's been a few since the two of you last connected. And again, spoiler alert, the series is tied 2-2. So we'll sort of figure out what we think the keys to the best of 3 series will be moving forward. There's a whole lot of other NHL action taking place. It's hot. Maybe we'll talk about the weather. I don't know. But you know what? Let's jump into Rewind. How do we want to approach a rewind here? Do we want to go all the way back when it was all sunshine and rainbows? Or do we just want to sort of acknowledge that the Vancouver Canucks looked good to start the series? They didn't look too bad in Game 3, and then Game 4 happened. So how do we want to approach that?
Let's just quickly summarize Games 1, 2, and 3 in a nutshell. Games 1 and 2, they looked great. I think in the end of Game 2, you saw Tyler Myers go down, and that's when it really seemed to shift the momentum a little bit. St. Louis ties it up on the Perron/Jaden Schwartz kneecap goal. And then the Canucks come away with an overtime win that Bo Horvat obviously played a big role in. Bo Horvat was playing great hockey in Games 1 and 2, has looked pretty lackluster since then. Game 3, I think the Blues and the Canucks played a fairly even game, but of course the Blues had the upper hand, came away with a Braden Chen overtime goal. Let's talk about Game 4.
Well,
I wanted to talk about my assertion that Bo Horvat in Games 1 and 2 looked like, early 90s Trevor Linden.
Oh,
2011 Ryan Kessler.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason I go way back is I think he's a nicer person. The early 90s Trevor Linden, though. See, I think most people remember Trevor in his second go-around as a Vancouver Canuck, where he had lost a step, but he then relied on his skill and expertise. Back in the 90s, there was a reason why he would play. He will play for a Stanley Cup because it's just he put the team on his shoulders. Bo had that in him. In fact, I'd almost say in Games 3 and 4, he's still trying and almost trying too hard. And it's that, cliche, squeezing your stick a little too hard that I think is getting in the way. Although Game 4 tonight, he just got absolutely demolished. Every period, there was at least one it's taken a while for him to get up off the ice moment. And I was wondering how much more Bo could sort of put up with sort of this back-to-back game.
I mean, it was rough for everyone physically. This game, Canucks got monstered. Often by legal hits, honestly, and sometimes by some rough calls as well. But if anyone can put up with that, it's Bo. Like, he's put this team on his back for the last 2 years. Like, he is the guy that can deal with that. But everyone looked exhausted tonight. Yeah. And St. Louis really didn't. So, yeah, I think they could use the day off, that's for sure.
The thing that, sort of struck me as I was watching this game is I'm thinking, oh, well, the Vancouver Canucks have essentially been in playoff hockey right from sort of the get-go. Whereas the St. Louis Blues in the round robin, the common refrain was that it was more like a preseason tournament more than an actual playoff experience. And I think you could almost argue that the Vancouver Canucks took advantage of the Blues in that first game where they just came out gunning and the Blues needed a little moment or two to warm up. And then on top of that, the Blues weren't necessarily getting the goaltending that they needed, that they've now started to get from Allen, at least previously from Binnington. But could it be that the Vancouver Canucks young team is, again, this is for the most part the first time in the playoffs for many of them, do they not realize sort of the energy that they're going to sort of put onto the ice? And then in turn, that back-to-back was killer. Every player on the ice looked slow. I mean, even Petey, until sort of the end of the game, looked slow. And the Blues, with all this experience and the fact that they've got a ring on their finger, are like, oh, no, this is our time to shine. Is one day off going to be enough for this young Canucks roster?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think I don't disagree with anything that you guys have just said. I think more than anything, the team looked pretty sluggish in this tail end of the back-to-back. You highlighted Pettersson as looking sluggish. I'd even go so far to say that Quinn Hughes looked pretty mortal on tonight's loss as well. Played 29 minutes, by the way, tonight, so he logged some heavy minutes. And I really think that a lot of that goes back to the fact that Tyler Myers is hurt. You're putting more and more strain on your top pairing guys, Edler, Tanev. I mean, we could have a huge discussion about how Troy Stecher has seemed to struggle in games 3 and 4 as well. But I mean, these are young guys. They're professional athletes. They've had a lot of time off to recover. I think that at least a full day off the ice will do them some wonders. Take that morning skate on Wednesday morning, and hopefully you're maybe getting an injection of healthy players back into your lineup for Game 5.
I mean, if the Canucks did well out of, the intense play-in series where the Blues were a step behind, maybe we're seeing now the other end of things, that Blues essentially had some time off or some time playing some very low-intensity hockey where Canucks lost 2 of their players to injury.
Mm-hmm.
They've now lost a third, and it's really showing. And if Canucks can't use special teams, then they're just looking lost out there.
Well, talking about special teams, prior to hitting record, Matt and I were chatting about the Vancouver Canucks in Game 4 going 0 for 7, and the way that power play looked, they could have had 20 opportunities and would have possibly gone 0 for 20. I commented in the third period, the power play looked slow. And the Blues were keeping everything to the outside. Brock Besser seemed to be on the wrong side of the ice. And I know that's his spot. But every time he got the puck on his backhand, it seemed. Miller wasn't getting the space that he had been receiving previously. Quinn, quarterbacking, he didn't do too badly. But the difficulty was that the Blues sort of have figured out, okay, we're just going to go and give him that space, and we're just going to shut down the lanes. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is to that all-in power play that Noah Brown is rolling out. If there's one bright spot, it's that we saw, I think it was in Game 2, late, where they were moving the puck on a string, nice and quick. That's what I think the Vancouver Canucks need to get to, is they need to get the Blues on that back skate, twist it around. Or if they're unable to do that, Simplify, crash the net, get those dirty garbage goals.
Yeah, I go one further. It wasn't just the power play; it was at 5-on-5 in general. I felt that the Canucks had a hell of a time getting their passes crisp and their breakouts going. Anytime they got zone entries into the power play, it seemed like it was a one and done opportunity before the Blues corralled the rebound and just flipped the puck out of the zone. Whereas, you look at highlights of games 1 and 2, the Canucks looked like they had sustained lengthy pressure in the Blues end on many an occasion during that power play. It looked as though they were playing with such confidence that they were a threat to score on every single power play opportunity. And they did. They had 3 power play goals in game 1. They had 2 in game 2. But to go 0 for 7 in game 4 shows you just how much the Blues have made adjustments on the penalty kill and how off the Canucks seem to be both on the power play and at even strength tonight.
Yeah, and it's such a small thing, but the fact that the puck hopped over Miller's stick in the middle of a power play, I just think it was indicative of the difference between the silky smooth passing play, the sustained pressure leading often to a high danger chance or a goal, and what we saw tonight, which was just like clunky. They never got set up right. Like Quinn was struggling to get a lane. So yeah, I think that was just a microcosm of the issue.
To be honest with you, I mean, you look at the goal that the Canucks did score, the JT Miller deflection. Outside of that, can you really name a bona fide scoring opportunity the Canucks had on Jake Allen?
The PD shot on Allen's stick, the one that he sort of hit like just below the button.
Right.
That's probably the closest that I could say.
But the point I'm trying to make is that the Canucks seemed to make it a very easy night for Jake Allen. It didn't seem like they were generating scoring chances by the bushel like they had been in games 1 and 2. Yeah, it's just it was a weird game.
It almost occurs to me that the Blues are also playing a different style of hockey in front of Allen than they were from like Binnington. With Binnington, it was more loose run and gun, which I think plays into the Vancouver Canucks' strengths. Whereas in front of Allen, they're playing a much more conservative, and I mean I sort of use that loosely because as we saw, they were able to turn things around. But they're smarter on the puck. They're aggressive forecheck. To your point earlier, Matt, when the Vancouver Canucks do bring that puck in the zone, the Blues are collapsing hard. And, Jessica in our Discord in Gate 16, who's been dropping the charts, goes to show that the Vancouver Canucks are getting very few opportunities just in these last 2 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it so Canucks that they made like a, let me put quote marks here, colder caliber goalie in Jordan Binnington.
You struggle too with it.
Well, I didn't mess up Calder. I messed up the word caliber. But Calder caliber goalie in Jordan Binnington looked distinctly average. And then they make Jake Allen, who's pretty subpar goalie, I would say, even as backups go, look like, Vezina candidate.
Well, the game that was played tonight, they said during the broadcast, was his first consecutive games, not back-to-back, first consecutive games since December. I mean, that's, how much he's seen the ice in the period that Binnington has been sort of running the show. We're not going to see Binnington come back. Like, if the Vancouver Canucks come out and win Game 5, unless they absolutely shell the Blues, Allen's riding this one out. Like, I don't see any reason why Binnington comes back, and I don't know if the Vancouver Canucks have a solution for what Jake Allen is throwing at him.
Yeah, they certainly can't be aiming low blocker like they had been in games 1 and 2. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about Ryan O'Reilly now, or do you want to talk about him in the next segment?
Yeah, we'll talk about him now and the fact that he's decided to take the series over.
Well, he's missed the playoffs, right?
True. But, was it the second goal that they had tonight where he would pretty much had set up his apartment, had furnished everything, and had so much room, he was able to invite a couple Canucks over for
had a siesta
before he swung out.
They didn't accept his invitation, I guess, because no one was around.
How does Ryan O'Reilly get that much space on the ice? I mean, I guess we kind of know. I mean, it got discussed during the intermission, but it almost, like, maybe it goes back to the team being tired, but the Vancouver Canucks are making some mental mistakes. Like, they're losing track of key players on the ice in a given moment of time. We saw that actually in game 3 when, Quinn Hughes goes in deep in overtime, and I don't know who the forward was that was covering for him, but wasn't really even covering on the blue line, was more, just above the hash mark. So
it was like Ryan O'Reilly had coughed on a bus or something. That's how much space he got.
No mask.
Yeah.
Team scattered.
Yeah,
Simply
definitely.
put,
It was rough.
Ryan O'Reilly came in and stole the Canucks cookies in game 4. And he just ate them right in front of them.
Well, and then he asked for more, and the Canucks were like, okay.
Here you go.
Yeah.
It's hard to see. And then, the other player who's having a much more distinct impact now is Perron. He's in the mind of, I think, Markstrom.
Oh, I think
as much as we might hate it, like,
he makes Ryan Hartman look like a schoolboy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Vancouver real estate is real expensive, but David Perron's getting a cheap deal in the mind of Canucks players and Canucks fans, that's for sure.
Well, actually, just on that note, does Vancouver have an equivalent? Like, is there a player on this roster, maybe Roussel, maybe, but I don't see him playing that role that could do something similar to the Blues?
I think the best way of putting it is David Perron is to the Blues what Alex Burrows was in the Canucks' heyday. A very effective pest who can actually score goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talking a little bit more about Ryan O'Reilly, I find that the ironic thing was the Blues tried very hard in games 1 and 2 to match against the Pettersson line at 5-on-5. Games 3 and 4 come around where the Canucks have last change, and the Canucks are trying to get away from the Pettersson-Ryan O'Reilly matchup. And it actually seemed to work in the Blues' favor, I thought. The Ryan O'Reilly line is matched up against the Horvat line, and I thought that O'Reilly was just feeding it to the Horvat line in games 3 and 4. Yeah, it's opening up some looks for the Pettersson line in the absence of Ryan O'Reilly. But for the most part, if you're Craig Berube, you're probably taking that trade-off because O'Reilly looks even more effective against the Horvat line than he did against the Pettersson line.
Well, I think it's simply put that the role of that line changes. Like, previously, they were out there to shut down the Lotto line. Now that they don't have that opportunity to do so, they're just pure offense. And unfortunately, the Horvat line isn't shutting them down effectively. Unfortunately, the Lotto line, as you said, getting looks, they're not capitalizing. I actually think the trade-off is so significant that, not that the Vancouver Canucks in Game 5 get that last line chain, but come Game 6, I think the Lotto line goes up against the O'Reilly line.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously it seems like a waste when the Lotto line has to play any sort of defensive role, but Petey can do that, and he's really effective at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just means that the offensive talents get a bit wasted on that. But, like, yeah, if you can't capitalize on your offense, then you need to make power plays count, and Canucks really didn't.
Well, before we talk about special teams a little bit more, we've talked about this on previous episodes all throughout the season. The Vancouver Canucks need that distinct second line that can produce offense. The way Bo Horvat was playing in games 1 and 2, that was what the Canucks needed. The problem is they've taken that line away almost. They've gone and said, hey, we need you to be defensive first. That's taken away the offensive side. So they lose that second depth line, and now all this pressure is on the Lotto line. And I think the Blues are like, okay, cool, yeah, we could totally go and shut down the line. Thanks. Your second line is going to be busy trying to keep ours in check. So we're confident in the depth we've got. And unfortunately, due to injury, the Vancouver Canucks don't have much more beyond, at least from an offensive perspective, in lines 3 or 4. It's actually in a mention. I actually thought, the The fourth line felt more like a third line tonight.
I thought Zach McEwen had some really good offensive looks.
Well, but that's what but like they were okay. Well, okay. What's the fourth line? Like I was having difficulty tonight because I generally measure the fourth line by where Jake happens to be placed.
No, I measure the fourth line as the Mont Beagle and McEwen line.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what I'm getting at. To me, they had a lot of pressure. They had intensity. They were everything that I think you'd want your third line to possibly be. And
yeah, but they didn't do like a ton, but you know, if your first and second line are producing, then they look like quite a good back end. But they weren't, so yeah, it just added to the general malaise.
That third line was non-existent tonight.
Oh, it was rough.
Which, you know, Hercules, I know you listen to the podcast, you get upset when we take shots at Jake. I think all three of us would love to see sort of those, you know, glimpses of brightness we get from Jake to occur in the playoffs here. Like if he came in and he just annihilated a Blues player or just became a bull and took the puck to the net like that. We're not seeing that. We're just seeing vanilla hockey.
Real talk, Jake Virtanen looks like he's checked out. This is a guy who's getting very, not meaningless, but he's getting very limited minutes in a very limited role, and he's not doing much with them. And the ironic thing is he's not, you know, acquitting himself to Travis Green in any way by continuing to play like that. Every time you see Jake Virtanen out there, you're kind of hoping he just chips the puck in deep and just obliterates a guy in the corner and strips the puck off of him. But he just doesn't look engaged mentally and physically in this game. Even playing, you know, power play 2, he kind of looks like he's just out for a skate. And I know that term gets used a lot for some lazy players, but Virtanen looks like a guy who almost feels like the coaching staff have given up on him and he's just playing because they pretty much have no other alternative at this point.
So, I mean, we'll get into it in a moment, but do you think he comes out for Game 5?
We'll talk about it in the next segment.
Okay. The example I would give Jake is show him the fourth line and the way they're playing. And if he could bring that type of intensity to his gameplay, I think the Canucks are better for it. I think Jake's better for it. I'd almost accept that aggressiveness possibly getting him, you know, into the box and having to pay Tyler Myers rent for that space in the Sunman. But the difficulty is that as he's not sort of playing that aggressive style, like was it Game 3 or Game 2 where you took that penalty deep
Game
in
3.
the offense? It was Game 3. Okay, yeah. Like where it's like, okay, Jake, what are you doing there? That's the stuff that I think sort of drives me nuts. It's one thing to play physical and to go and throw your body around, but that wasn't either of those. Though I believe it was a trip, if anything.
Yeah, it's just messy hockey rather than like you want to have him get under the team's skin, but that's not what that was.
Nothing was going right in Game 4. Heck, even Markstrom cracked a skate.
Yeah, did you see the skate blade just like just get yeeted out of that? It was just like, I'm done. I don't want to be part of this anymore.
I commented to Marnie at the time. I'm like, something like, did someone break a stick? Because look, there's this piece. And then all of a sudden I realized Markstrom's not getting up on his feet. I'm like, oh, he must have buggered his blade. Thankfully, nothing came out of it. But like, if something could go wrong, it was going wrong. Oh, man. It's hot. I think we should take a quick break here. You are listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad. Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time, and yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Kicking off half full, half empty. Is this best of three half full or half empty? Well, you're going to learn from us, your sage Canucks podcast prognosticators. Let's get into that question I asked earlier. Does Jake come out in Game 5?
Yes.
If Tyler Toffoli is ready to go, I think it's a no-brainer.
Or Gaudette.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, the scuttlebutt right now is Gaudette comes in, and Gaudette hasn't looked bad. Like, I'm not going to say he's had a significant impact, but...
My problem with Gaudette is that you're putting him in a position where he probably can't succeed. Is he playing center, or is he playing on his off wing, a position that he almost never plays?
Yeah, he goes to the fourth line, and
I mean, the other option is to pull Mr. Good in the room, Jay Beagle.
No, they're not taking Beagle off. The other option the real other option is moving Sutter
not
to
tonight.
the wing.
Yeah, which Sutter can do.
Yeah.
And then they keep that spare center.
But
can I point out just quickly, Sutter? I'm coming around to Sutter. Like, if this is what that Jim Benning brought him for was playoff hockey, I'm sorely disappointed that the Vancouver Canucks took so long to get the playoffs, because he's looked
foundational.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I'll totally keep this guy. He reminds me of Manny Malhotra. Maybe not the right price, because Manny was a whole lot better value. But like, when he's on the ice, I'm kind of calm. I trust that he knows what he's doing.
Not to rain on the Brandon Sutter parade too much, but I thought he had a pretty mediocre Game 4, but we'll agree that he looked great in Games 1, 2, and 3. Exactly. Back on the note of Adam Gaudette, my hesitation with putting him back into this lineup, whether it be at center or on the wing, is that it's well documented he struggles at 5-on-5 and driving play. And the Canucks are already sort of trying to play catch up with the Blues at 5-on-5. I think that it probably does more of a disservice than it does to actually try to inject some offense into this lineup. Which again is why I keep falling back onto the notion that if Tyler Toffoli is ready to go, there's someone who you can inject that can drive offense and is good at 5-on-5. I just think that if you're wanting to put Adam Gaudette back into the lineup, you're making a move for the sake of making a move. And I don't know if that's the right way to go.
Yeah, you might be right, because, I mean, I'm just looking for something, right? And the problem is we have no idea about Tyler Toffoli because media aren't at practice, so we don't know if he's skating, how he's looking, anything.
Don't get me wrong, I'm like on a wing and a prayer right now, hoping that one or both of Tyler Toffoli and Tyler Myers can come back into this lineup, because it does seem in some ways that the only way the Canucks have a real shot at trying to get back into this series. It's funny that I say that when it's a 2-2 series, by the way. But the only way the Canucks might have a shot of getting back into the series or taking control of this series is if they can get one of those two guys back into the lineup, because it's just those bottom two lines, whether it be the third line or the fourth line, or the fourth line, the third line, whatever you want to call it, Chris, these days, neither of those lines are getting it done at 5-on-5. And they need Toffoli just to push that depth down the lineup just a little bit more, in my mind.
Isn't it crazy? Just because of how fast everything moves, even this time last week, trying to say that, oh yeah, we really missed Tyler Myers just seems crazy. But it's true.
Well, okay, if we had recorded this podcast a couple days ago, we would have been asking, prior to the injury, why Tyler Myers continues to get dressed, because he had essentially rented out the penalty box on a lease deal. Like he was
set up a nice vacation cottage in the box.
Do you think the penalty box attendant misses him?
I think so. Like, I mean, the funny thing about this though is, despite his constant parade, to the sin bin. It didn't hurt the Vancouver Canucks significantly, and his presence on the ice has definitely been missed since his shoulder injury and his departure. Like it's night and day. I can't myself reason how is it that a Tyler Myers' presence on the ice stabilizes teams so significantly, yet his constant penalties didn't punish them.
I mean, I would say that the Canucks probably did struggle thanks to his constant penalties.
He didn't make it easy, but you know what I mean? Like it's St. Louis is still capitalizing. Like game 4, they punished the Canucks.
Regardless of how we feel about the parade to the penalty box that Tyler Myers has taken over the course of the postseason, and no one here is just saying that it's doing the team a disservice, but the reality is that Tyler Myers is still a very good top 4 defenseman. He has a calming presence on the blue line. His long reach has the ability to break up plays down low, which we cannot understate or overstate how important that is that the long reach he has is able to break up plays along the wall, which is how the Blues have also been dominating also down low. It seems like the Blues are sustaining pressure all the time in the Canucks defensive zone, and I think a large part of it is they don't have Tyler Myers at their disposal to help break up some of those plays. Mm-hmm. I am like the head of the Tyler Myers ripping club, but you look at Tyler Myers and his absence in game 2, it's no coincidence that the team started to sort of play catch up in the defensive zone ever since Myers went down in the third period of that game 2. It just seems like ever since then, the Canucks have been trying to chase the Blues a little bit in the defensive zone.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree at all. It is definitively a much different blue line. And, to your point that you'd raised earlier in Rewind, Stetcher is now being expected to fill a role that, he's struggling to maybe do, but I don't necessarily think that's as much on Stetcher and so much as the pairings.
Here's the thing. This isn't a knock on Troy from Richmond, because I think Troy from Richmond has had a pretty decent playoffs up until games 3 and 4. But the reality is, Troy, and this is why there are still those kind of dinosaurs who talk about size for defensemen. But Troy Stetcher is 5'10", and Tyler Myers is 6'6". We're talking a half-foot difference, a massive reach difference. And Stetcher is the kind of defenseman who's been able to keep his head above water for games 1 and 2, but has been horribly exposed in game 3. Looked a little bit better in game 4, but still struggled otherwise.
I mean, it's kind of crazy.
It also brings Vandenberg into the lineup.
I was going to say that Vandenberg,
I don't have a problem with Vandenberg, actually. I thought Vandenberg played better than Stetcher in some respects.
Yeah, I would say so.
And while we're talking about the other defensemen, by the way, I have no problem with Jordy Ben and how he's played since coming back into the lineup for games 3 and 4.
And I'm not suggesting that there is any problem with Ben whatsoever. I think Ben sliding in, that's why I sort of single out Vandenberg. You're right, Vandenberg's looked okay. I mean, I'd say he had a better game 3 than he did a game 4, which, again, we've said about all other players. I mean, functionally, the Vancouver Canucks are, for everything that we said they had the depth going into the playoffs, are now running into the areas where the depth is weakest. That's where they actually have been hurt. It just, it's that age-old Canucks curse that seems to exist. So how do the Vancouver Canucks win game 6?
5.
5, 6, 7? I'm so lost. Yeah, game 5.
5. Yeah, correct. Wow.
Could the Blues go back to Jordan Binnington?
Yeah,
that would do us a great help.
Jake Allen would have to suddenly be designated unfit to play for mysterious reasons for Binnington to find his way into the net for game 5.
And considering NHL just presented another clean bill of tests, it looks unlikely.
Real talk, you look at the numbers I'm looking at right now on the TV. The Blues were 2 for 5 on the power play. The Canucks were 0 for 7. The game was completely won and lost in the special teams battle, similar to how it was won for the Canucks in game 1 and in game 2 in some respects. I don't know what it is in terms of looking at the tape, but the Canucks probably need to go back to games 3 and 4, look at how the Blues have managed to adjust both on the penalty kill and on the power play and make some adjustments themselves because, quite likely the series might be won or lost on special teams through games 5 and 6, possibly 7.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what was said because we're recording right after the game, but there seems to be some talk on Twitter that Miller was calling out the video team. So
Sorry.
I don't know whether he was saying they were unprepared on the special teams end.
Sorry, like JT Miller suggesting that coaching staff, right, didn't prepare.
I mean, I'm just saying
that's
this
always
from
good to happen.
I know. I'm hoping that this is me misconstruing tweets, but that's what I've gotten. That's what I've gleaned. But there's no doubt that special teams really hurt the Canucks.
So, okay, I'm gonna
especially
go
sorry, just to finish the point, is that if we don't have control over how the game is being officiated, and don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying that the officiating costs the Canucks the game. I'm definitely not saying that. But that's something they don't have control over. So they need to be better, both on the PK and on the power play when they do get the calls, because that's something they do control.
So, as a segue, I had commented on Twitter that it just blows my mind the number of people that feel that there's a fix in for the Vancouver Canucks when it comes to officiating. Brutal calls, inconsistent calls, they're going to happen. And pretty much every fan base out there sees this and feels that and there's a segment that says the fix is in. When you go 0 for 7, trust me, there isn't any. Yeah, like that's not the referees trying to take something away from you. Now, you might argue like, oh, well, that call should have been made when Sutter was hit from behind, that Vandenberg got called for. You know what? It was quite possible. The league used the Sutter example of that's a penalty, and guess what happens in game 4? The referee sees something similar and call it. That's not the league going and trying to take the screws to the Vancouver Canucks. That's them trying to help educate their own officials. And I'm not suggesting that it happened, but I think, to your point, Anna, the Vancouver Canucks need to focus on one very simple part of the game, and that is what they have control over on the ice. Whether it's a smart penalty kill, an effective power play, and ensuring in 5-on-5 hockey they make few, if any, mistakes and capitalize on those that the Blues present to them.
Yeah, that's just fundamentally it. Right? Because I won't disagree that the officiating was bad, but I would say it was the frustrating thing was that it was inconsistent.
Yeah, and I mean, inconsistency is consistent. If there's one thing, it seems to be with the NHL, especially when it comes to early playoff hockey.
Yeah.
I get there's obviously a lot of calls for Adam Gaudette to draw back into the lineup, but I saw an interesting idea that got my brain percolating, if you guys will let me indulge you. What about Justin Bailey? This is a right winger who's got a lot of speed. He does play with a lot of energy, not unlike Tyler Mott. I'm wondering if any of you have considered that, even in the remotest way possible.
I'll be honest, no.
I'll be honest, it's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I will put my Simon Cowell and say it's a no from me. Like, I don't imagine that that's what Travis Green thinks is going to solve. Like, there's no magic pill, right?
Yeah, I mean,
imagine for what?
Isn't that just like what you were saying, criticizing us for earlier about change for change's sake with Gaudette?
Well, that's the thing is, I'm not suggesting change for change's sake. The change needs to actually be calculated. So, like pulling Virtanen out, I think Matt argued effectively that Toffoli is the one that comes in. That's who takes a spot. I'm not suggesting Gaudette comes in for Virtanen, especially if it starts to skew that fourth line, because that's where Gaudette's going to go, and that then impact. Like, there's too many things that impact. Bailey. That is, I mean, if if it wasn't 2020, I'd say no way at all. But we saw OJ come in. Like, Juolevi got himself some play-in time, right? Like, 2020 is
fine.
No, I know,
But
but like,
didn't change the game.
No, I'm not suggesting Ole Juolevi was expected to change the game, but you know what I mean? Like, in what postseason would that have ever occurred without some form of injury or like drastic like reduction in depth that Ole Juolevi would find his way into a play-in playoff game?
Yeah, although, I mean, the Canucks were a defenseman down with Ben coming back from Dallas. So.
Sure, but in theory,
it was a little funky.
Juolevi wasn't the guy who got the phone call, right? Like, that was the part that was odd to me. But he did well. So, hey, you know what? Maybe Matt's right. Maybe it's someone completely off the board here. You heard it here first in C4. Bailey coming in for Virtanen.
Yeah, I mean, I
do not endorse this take.
I totally acknowledge it's incredibly unlikely, just given how we've seen Gaudette in warm-ups more often than not. But I mean, I think when you've given and conceded as much momentum as the Canucks have, you're looking at every option that you can to revitalize your lineup a little bit, because the Canucks are tied. Like, this is a tied series. It's 2-2. But it feels like the Canucks are down 3-2 right now.
Well, it's that shift of momentum. If we were sort of talking about this prior to the game today, where I think, Matt, you had sort of said you were more nervous about Game 3 than you were sort of going into Game 4. Game 3, we sort of expected the Blues to respond, and they did. But that game was so close. Like, it could have gone either way prior to that overtime winner for the Blues. So that gave us this confidence that, okay, the Vancouver Canucks have just encountered the adversity they needed to go and turn a page. And that's why I think we were more comfortable going into Game 4. That didn't occur. We actually saw quite the opposite. We saw a very tired team look tired on the ice and have absolutely no answer to what the Blues were throwing at them. So now we're kind of like, okay, well, this isn't feeling as well. Momentum's definitively on the Blues side. And as a Canucks fan, 2-0 leads scare me. Like, I've been through too many where the Vancouver Canucks have gone up 2-0 and it's suddenly, holy smokes, what's going on? So if there's one saving grace, Markstrom historically has not done well on back-to-backs. And I would say that tonight he may not have provided his A game. He had a B game. It wasn't brutal like that one we saw against the Wild.
But he wasn't why they lost.
No, he wasn't why they lost.
He kept them in it for a long time.
Oh, but that's why I'm not, like, where the Canucks had to bail him out against Minnesota. There was no bailing Markey out. Markey was trying to bail his team out. I'm expecting a banger of a game from Markey going into Game 5. And he always has that bounce back. He's going to get the rest. And for me, I think Markey is going to be what wins them the game. And if they can get that Game 5 win, I'm completely confident. I look at this way: whoever wins Game 5 wins this series.
Okay.
I was thinking whoever wins Game 4 wins this series, to be honest. But let's go with Game 5. How about that
take? But yeah, Markey can't score goals. Like, they need to do something else.
No,
Markey can stand on his head. Anyway.
I have confidence the Canucks can get at least one.
Okay.
Let's
Miller
talk about why
with just
you.
The tip again.
So how about we sort of. Do you want to take a break and we go to the next segment? We'll talk about reasons why we think the Canucks will win the series and why they might not. Let's do that on the next segment.
Sounds good.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't.
You out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
As far as segments goes, again, we need to have like this sort of fill-in when like the F word doesn't fit, because I don't feel like you're just going to go and give us a rant.
You want me to give you a rant?
Give us a rant.
Let's give you a rant. This team did not look good in games 4. You know, and the reality is the Vancouver Canucks need to be much better at 5-on-5. It's a tall order, but the Blues have always been a generally strong 5-on-5 team. And right now, the Canucks are just getting eaten alive 5-on-5 by the Ryan O'Reilly line. David Perron is living in the Canucks' head right now. Simply put, especially in their bottom 6 forwards, they need to be better 5-on-5. Too often, games 3 and 4 caught chasing around in the defensive zone, and it just feels like the Vancouver Canucks have awoken a very hungry, very good St. Louis Blues team. They need the rest. They need to look at the video, and they're going to need to make some adjustments. I hope Tyler Myers and or Tyler Toffoli can come back into this lineup to give it a boost, but you can't expect on them to come back into this lineup. Simply put, the guys that were on the ice for Game 4 needs to be better for Game 5. Otherwise, it's going to be a very quick and painful end to the series.
Nice.
It's not half bad,
like
right?
That.
So
yeah, you should give that speech in the locker room.
Yeah, I don't
Via
know.
Zoom.
I don't know. You would need more energy. Like that was. I think of the old school Matt rants where you're like
anger-fueled one from JT Miller, probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say get JT Miller to read it out. Drop a couple of F-bombs in the middle.
Yeah.
Chris, let me pose the question to you. Give me one reason why you think the Canucks will still pull out this series.
Markstrom. Just as I said in the last segment, I genuinely feel Markstrom is going to be the difference. And let's be honest, Markstrom versus Allen, which goaltender wins?
Yeah. Jacob every damn day. Oh, right. I forgot they're both Jacobs.
I think Jake Allen is good. Don't get me wrong. I actually think Jake Allen was clearly the momentum shift that the Blues needed to give themselves a chance to get back into the series, but he certainly isn't stealing games for the St. Louis Blues. Let me make that clear.
I was going to say,
he's part of a bigger equation.
He's the guy that you pull, like, it's when you pull your goalie just to shake your team up. Not saying that Binnington was good, he was bad, but, like...
Demko's not coming in.
Yeah. For sure not. Binnington, like, as much as Canucks, like, had him those first 2 games, Binnington's a much superior goaltender to Jake Allen overall. Mm-hmm. But Jake Allen is the quote-unquote hot hand, so...
Anna, how about you? One reason why you think the Canucks will win this series?
Just the supreme talent of Pedersen. Like, I think you can't keep him out of a game for long, and I do think it will make a difference.
I think those are all fair points. Just to be different, I'm going to take the stance that I think there's probably no player that needs more of a rest right now than Quinn Hughes. 29 minutes in Game 4.
He looked played almost half the game tonight.
He looked very mortal, slow in some respects. It's clear that some of those hits he's been taking are catching up to his body a little bit. So hopefully he gets on the mend. But, you know, from what we've seen, it's so obviously clear that the Canucks power play runs through Quinn Hughes, and it has been the difference in games 1 and 2, and it will need to be the difference once again in Game 5. It's a lot to ask for any 20-year-old, but I think we've seen throughout this postseason now that Quinn Hughes truly is the most important player to this franchise in terms of he sets the pace and he sets the tone. He needs some time off, and hopefully brings it in Games 5 and 6. Possibly 7.
I'm surprised that none of us suggested Brock Besser, who's had a very, very quiet series.
Yeah, it's I don't know what to make out of it for Brock
he's
Besser.
Kind of implied within mine, but he's definitely not come on as strong as I'd hoped.
Well, considering how he played against the Wild.
Yeah. Can't he find some childhood connection to St. Louis?
It certainly looked like he's lost a little bit of that fire from the Minnesota series. You know, the funny thing is he put up 4 assists in games 1 and 2 total. So it's not like he hasn't put up the numbers, but he certainly seems to have been quite pedestrian, I think would be a fair way to put it. You're hoping you see the best from him. Let's put it this way: Brock Besser's never going to win a foot race against most players in the NHL, but you like to see him get his nose a little dirty, like he has in the Minnesota series, and maybe getting in front of the net for the St. Louis Blues. I know that he's sort of been that net front presence, but it just seems like he's had a harder time tracking some rebounds.
Speaking of that net presence, I think it was when Miller was out, was it? And ultimately, Brock found himself in front of the net on the power play. I actually think, I get you're losing a shot from the sideboards, but St. Louis is taking that away from him right now. So why not have him go to become that net presence?
Yeah, I agree. Because I would say, it's not a great long-term solution because you do lose that creativity from the power play, but you're playing the same opponent who's figured that out already, time and time again. Like, change it up, and
just a different look.
Yeah, agreed.
So Matt has the Vancouver Canucks losing the series already. So Anna, you said the winner of Game 4 wins the series.
Yeah,
No,
but
then he
I'm
did
going
his
with what you guys
motivational
said as
speech.
Game 5. I'm going with what you guys said for Game 5.
How confident are the two of you that the Vancouver Canucks are going to pull this out, whether it be in 6 or 7?
So if you asked me going into Game 4, I would have said...
I'm asking you going into Game 5.
I know. But I'm saying, if you asked me going into Game 4, I would have said 65%. It's probably down to close to 50-50 now for me.
Oh, wow.
Which makes sense given it's 2-2 in the series. It's almost as if either team could win.
You know what? I'm still gonna go. I think I said, someone can fact check me on this, that I said Canucks in 7 anyway. So I'm sticking with that, but I would say we're at 52-48.
Oddly
some
specific.
People, I guess some people will know the significance of those numbers to Brits, but decisive.
Was it Brexit?
Yeah,
there you go.
So
how about you,
I did not
guy?
give a prediction. I did not give a prediction. I know you guys had asked for one, but I was on vacation. I would have told you Canucks in 6 prior to the series starting. I think
that's what I said.
And I would not have I felt that it was going to be a split in games, like essentially 2-2 to where we are now, but it would have been 1-1, 1-1, and then the Canucks would win 2. I think the Vancouver Canucks are going to win Game 5, and I am holding true to the fact that the Vancouver Canucks will then win the series, but they're going to win it in 7. I don't see the Blues losing 2 straight now. Not with sort of how the dynamic of the series has gone. Like, we're talking full clinch, man.
Yeah,
full clinch.
That Game 2 was about as maximum clinch as it gets, but a Game 7 would be a 2.5 hour clincher for sure.
Well, watch it go to get tied late in a third, go to overtime.
Let's hope it's not 35 degrees that day too.
Oh my god, it's so warm.
Well, speaking of warm, it's about that time we go and take a spin around the rest of the league. Any surprises from the rest of the series? I mean, the one that sort of strikes me is the fact that the Islanders are just having their way with the Capitals.
Yeah, that's obviously been one of the biggest ones, I think, for sure.
The fact that the Chicago is still hanging tough, like they didn't get okay.
They didn't get swept.
They didn't get swept. Honestly, that was a surprise to me.
You see the.
I think order's being restored in the Colorado series.
Well, yeah. I mean, did you see the brouhaha in the game today?
Nathan MacKinnon just laying out Christian Fischer and giving him his lunch.
I think he was taking his lunch money.
Nathan MacKinnon literally said, "I don't need anyone to stand up for me. I will kill this guy myself," metaphorically.
He was
he was like an overworked housewife. He was like, "I'm gonna score these goals. I'm gonna show them who's boss on the ice. Nobody helps me in this damn house."
I think it might be safe to say Nathan MacKinnon is probably 1-2 with Connor McDavid right now in terms of the league's best players, like ahead of Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I think so. And Sidney Crosby
Dude
is
looks
still
like-
up there, so is
Yeah,
Ovi, but like,
Nathan McKinnon looks
And-
like he's on a mission this summer.
honestly, Nathan McKinnon is probably my favorite player to watch.
You know, just the speed that he goes to the net with, it's ridiculous. Remember how many times he's like put a proverbial banana down our pants and turned a monkey loose against the Canucks in the regular season? Like, the dude is so good.
That's a
It's
weird
not
metaphor.
fair.
I wasn't entirely sure where he was going with it.
That was
And then
weirder
it-
than my housewife thing.
It's a classic line from Vegas Vacation.
Okay, I was
I
going to
haven't
say,
seen
if
a
anyone
meeting like that
knows,
since someone put a banana down my pants and turned a monkey loose.
I'm sorry, I've heard you and your references to pants far too often in Discord and on this podcast to think there could be any good that would ever come from you putting a banana in anyone's pants.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just saying.
Yeesh.
The other biggest
Oh.
shocker of the playoffs, besides the Islanders jumping out to a 3-0 start, is that the Chicago Blackhawks won a game against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Like, them not getting swept is honestly funny to me.
That's the second biggest shocker of the playoffs. So
That
far.
busted my bracket.
Sucks to be you who has brackets. Be like me, don't have one. Nothing gets busted that way.
He's 100%, guys.
Oh, I am. My goodness, it's
Well, you know what, guys? I'm
We've
not gonna lie.
put in an episode.
This helped. This
I know.
was like a post-therapy session.
Cathartic, right?
You know, when we come back together next week, we'll either be previewing
Canucks
round
versus
2
Colorado.
or previewing
Or doing a post-mortem.
I, at some point in time, we're going to have to consider what the off season entails with the Vancouver Canucks. Hopefully, having lifted a Stanley Cup, obviously.
Don't mention the off-season.
Not
It's
to
bad
mention,
juju.
not to mention, you haven't even talked about the virtual cup parade that we're going to have throughout the summer.
Via Zoom.
I'm logging in for that.
There'll be
for
cameras
sure.
cameras set up all along Granville through Robson, and like will there
Yeah,
be
do you still have
cardboard
to
cutouts
close
of
off?
people?
Do you have to close off parade routes for Zoom parades?
I don't know. I would presume you have to.
They're going to be
'Cause-
charging us to join the Zoom meeting for that parade, aren't they?
Oh,
And
yeah.
we will buy tickets for it.
You know,
Yeah, like chumps. I'm happy to be that chump, honestly.
unless it's like physically distant, like where the parade essentially goes all the way from like Tawasin into Vancouver, so that all the fans can separate by 2 meters.
Well, let's just say it would be a good problem to have.
Yeah, no doubt. Where is the parade route? Is it Georgia Robson still, or
I think that's correct.
I think so too. Probably going through
Anyway.
Santa Cruz
I don't
and then
know.
culminating at BC Place is my guess.
not the Raj? Because it's not like fans will be in there. It'll
Yeah,
just be
but
cardboard
BC Place
cutouts of
can
the three
have-
of us.
Yeah, that's true. And we'll see.
How many-
We'll see when
sure
we
they
get
can
there.
fit more cardboard cutouts in BC Place. It's just who's cutting all that cardboard out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because speaking of cardboard cutouts, I want to say it was Kansas City.
Oh God.
Have you guys seen the movie Weekend at Bernie's?
Yes, I saw the
Yes.
cardboard
So-
cutout. Winkin' and Bernie's.
So yeah, I think it was in KC. They actually have a cardboard cutout of Bernie, and I was just thought like that's phenomenal. Like the reference there is so deep. Like people be like, "Oh, who's this guy wearing glasses and like a blue blazer?" I loved it. I'm old, and that movie is old, and it just speaks to me.
I literally thought you were going to say something like, speaking of cardboard cutouts, how about that Canucks power play?
No, we're at the end of an episode where we're taking it straight off the rails, and Matt's
We're
trying to wrap
literally
things up.
ending it on a positive note, though.
Oh, okay. Canucks parade route. Gotcha.
Better than
Yes.
talking about the thing that Anna talked about last week.
That was the best ending to a podcast ever. I've gotten so many comments on that, by the way.
And
Hey,
then I come,
like- I was going to say, like, we defeated Jordan Binnington. So whatever happens in this series, we defeated Jordan Binnington.
moral victories. What final words of wisdom do you have for all of our listeners there, Matt?
We didn't really talk about it too much on the episode, but I will say that win or lose against the St. Louis Blues, I do find it very encouraging that our young players have shown up for this postseason, especially Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. it's reassuring knowing that they are performing in the playoffs, that they can produce in the playoffs. From a long-term standpoint, it's much harder to find that high-end talent to build around than it is to find low-end talent to build around. So, you know that you've got the guys you want to build this team around with Hughes and Pettersson.
Anna?
I mean, that's more positive than I'm willing to look at things, or at least more forward-thinking than I was going to go for. I'm just saying Game 5 is key. Special teams are key. Let's go proper, like, PD, Brock, Miller, vintage lotto line, please.
JV18 hat trick. Everyone shotguns a keg.
I'll happily try that if
I
it
will
happens.
do that myself.
Okay, we'll live stream the two of you shotgunning a keg after JV18 gets his hat trick.
We will race in that shotgun if we have to.
My mom literally listens to this, so she won't be proud of it. But at my brother's 21st, I did beer keg, but like with a bottle of wine, and I was fine.
So actually,
I have form.
And Matt might remember the story, but there is a former contributor at Canucks Hockey Blog that used to do keg stands. In fact, her nickname was Keg Stand after we learned the story.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Well, I approve.
As for me, stay safe, everyone. BC is having a interesting go at the whole keeping people apart. So be smart about that.
Very quickly, God, I miss Josh Levo right now.
I know. I was thinking about him today because of, like, I was thinking about the Tyler Myers non-call, and then I was remembering how Josh Levo's injury didn't even get a call. A brutal.
Super quickly, I just you see the struggles in the bottom six, and like Josh Levo would be like a huge addition right now if he was suddenly healthy. But anyway,
blue guy.
Based on what I was talking about and the fact that he's unfit to play, I was like, oh, do you know something the rest of us don't?
No, it's non-COVID related.
Yeah, totally unrelated.
But Chris makes a good point. Make like you're the Canucks D on Ryan O'Reilly and just stay away from each other.
Or there's a church on Granville Street in Vancouver that's got a sign, masks keep Markstrom safe too. So
good point. And protect Marky at all costs.
That's right.
Be nice to Marky.
But if you are looking for our podcast, you found us. Well, I hope you click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and do us a solid. Tell a friend to subscribe to. We would love to have new listeners join into this friendly community. Speaking of the friendly community, I hope you're already a member of our Discord. And if you're not, go to discord.io/C4podcast. It'll get you into our Discord. The link's pinned on our Twitter feed as well. It's at the C4 podcast, where the wittiest tweets come from Anna and the more mundane tweets come from me. Adam might make a return. Who knows? If Adam returns, we all have to shotgun a keg as well, apparently. Something like that. But, another episode's in the bag. So hopefully we have good news to talk about next week. But on behalf of Matt at Lee_61, Anna Forsyth at A4603, myself, Chris at Lightforce, and the Missing in Action Unfit to Podcast, we'll be back at some point in the future. Adam Ovenall Carter at Adam FOC. I'm going to sign off this episode with those magical words. We out.